Alright, so I had a couple requests about this build. I just made a really long video, thoroughly in-depth explaining the build, everything about it, the gems, the tree, the gear, and I have to say it ended up being very long-winded. It's a 43-minute video. I'll be uploading it at some point, but I wanted to throw something quick up. So, real quick, Kinetic Blast is our main AoE, clearing most mobs, anything big, uniques, big uniques that pop out of Beyond, and obviously bosses. You're gonna end up hitting them with the Barrage. Barrage is just your one-shot rate fest ability. That's what we have our 6th link on. It's Pathfinder. Here's the tree. Again, in the longer video, I go into thorough detail of what everything is, why it's there, changes between the guy who actually made the build and little tweaks I've had to it. Most of them I have discussed with him, though. They're not necessarily, you know, just, hey, I tried this and I feel like it's good. There was a lot of thought into it, and a little bit over here is a little messy, but this was a transition. I had down to the 12, but then I switched some of them out for things like Druidic Rite, Point Blank, and then I ended up getting the melding with energy from within. Long story, again it's all explained in the longer video, but here's the tree. This is just a quick once over of the build. Here's the gear, you got your Ellie wand, lightning damage most important, Crown of Eyes. Crown of Eyes totally optional, my enchant blows, please ignore that. But you can use a hubris circlet, you will lose a little bit of damage, but you will gain so much more ES in return as long as you craft up a decent one. But it does give you a nice amount of damage and some accuracy rating, which is great. Rings are pretty straightforward. You gotta ignore the dex, you do have to get the strength though, to make sure you have enough strength to cover the weapon elemental damage support gems. You're covering your resists, and instead of weapon elemental damage on the ring, you can get its lightning damage to attacks, and that would actually be probably better, at least equal, in many cases better, because of the way the build works. Cry of the Storm is absolutely godly. Anyone who has a build that uses it will tell you they love it, and it's an amazing AME. Chest is pretty straightforward. Get your 6 link Val as much ES as you can, while ideally with some resists on it. Gloves, same deal. Attack speed is a nice option on gloves, but I mean there's, you know, we're talking about League. This is a lot of my build is kind of tailored to being in League, where there's limited availability on a lot of the GG options compared to the main guy who made it is standard, and he's got things like Legacy Vinktars, so he doesn't need Val Pact, and just much higher numbers on things like, you know, the shield and +2 barrage on the helm, etc., etc. Skyforts are unfortunately a huge part of the build. This is the only place we're generating power charges from, but we crit so much that we took the bandit for a 4th power charge, and we have absolutely no issue keeping 4 power charges up at all times while we're running maps. So it's huge. Stun threshold also, you are not immune to stun. That's somewhat of a misconception from what I've read a lot online, but you definitely are not. However, you won't get stunned as much. Hugely notable. No two ways about it. You will notice that you're barely getting stunned. If you're just suicide running into giant groups of enemies, especially where there's a bunch of ranged enemies that hit you at once, you will get stunned, but you're not supposed to be doing that in the first place. Mana Reserve is nice, but that's pretty much just the Skyforce. The power charge on crit alone is enough to make them a real backbone to the rest of the build, in terms of really hitting those huge numbers and those smooth efficiency runs. Rare on the belt. Obviously, ideally on the belt, you'll have flash charges, reduced flash charges used, and flash charge duration. But if I recall, those are suffixes, so then you're going to sacrifice a res. Mine, I went for, I mean, right now I just have really great resists on it and some armor. I do need to move around some resists on things like my rings, probably my gloves. There's a lot of moving around that has to happen, but as anyone knows, once you start messing with resists, you play what's called the resist game, and it becomes a really long in-depth ordeal. So I've kind of just been sent with what I got for a little bit now. Flasks. Absolutely mandatory is your Vinktars. Again, the guy who made the build runs Legacy. I'm in League, so that's not even an option. but the regular Vinktars is still amazing. I went with the added light damage to attacks one. You can go with the lightning pen one as well. Both great, but the flask itself is mandatory. You need to have it. It's your main source of bleach, and you have no issue keeping it up on all times because of the way Pathfinder and the rest of the build works. Oh, I don't think I said either with the ascendancies. You want normal, cruel, merciless, and then uber lab here. This one you're not in any rush to get. It's extremely convenient and does help with your running. However, it's not mandatory, so you save that one for last with merciless. I mean with uber lab. This way, if you're having issue with uber lab, you're not gimped because of that. Okay, sorry, back to flasks. Diamond flask. You want bleeding on this because you're immune to elemental status ailments because of the Pathfinder ascendancies. However, you're not immune to bleed. Once you get bleed on your diamond flask, you're good. You're covered on everything. You're golden. Wise Oak, the first part of it with the lowest resist, that's nice and all, but that's not really what you're concerned about because all your resists are going to be capped anyway. The main thing is the second part of it, the damage penetration. Because of that, you want your lightning resist to be the highest of your resists. I'm failing at that right now, but again, I do need to move around some of my resists to kind of optimize the build a little more. But you get your lightning resist uncapped to be the highest, and then that way you're going to get 20% bonus pen at all times, and you'll always have Vinktars up too, so you could kind of keep in mind that when you're using Vinktars, lightning's probably gonna always be your highest because of that 50% bonus. So let me just show you real quick. Right now it's not my highest, but when I pop all my flasks, which you'll almost always have, all of a sudden it's through the roof my highest. It's actually tied with fire for my highest, which is, how the fuck is, oh, because of Dying Sun. I didn't even realize that. That's absolutely awesome. So I'm getting both fire and lightning penetration. The only problem is I don't do any fire damage, so that part's not helping me. But as long as you're getting the lightning pen, you are golden. So I'm actually fine. I misspoke about my lightning resist situation there. I'm actually fine with where it is because of beautiful old Vinktars. Dying Sun. This son of a bitch is so expensive in League. It was 400, now it's 500. It's probably gonna still go up because it's so fucking good. But it's not mandatory. But if you use it once, you will ship bricks compared to not using it. The 2 additional projectiles, Kinetic Blast and Barrage, is absolutely huge. In addition to that, you're getting that area of effect, which is just so nice for your overall clearing, and you're using Herald Devices and Ore, so you're already exploding everything on the screen. You pop all your flasks, you shoot out a Kinetic Blast, the whole screen explodes. It's freaking beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. Amazing, amazing flask. And then movement speed, just because you need that movement speed. Quality of life is huge. No matter what you're doing, you don't want to take an hour to do it. And especially with all the speed buffs and everything we get, that's actually how I'm always running so ridiculously fast when I'm running maps or Uber Lab or whatever the case is. And I mean, time equals money, so that's really the best argument for that. That's it. We're using Ice Golem. The barrage links are Barrage, slower projectiles, increased crit damage, Wed, Light, Focus. The Kinetic Blast is GMP, Pierce, KB, Wed. You can throw those in Thunder Fist instead of Sorcerer's gloves if you prefer, but then you have to deal with getting more resists in other places, and there's the whole situation where Thunder Fists have very, very, very low energy shield. That being said, they are still better for just general map clearing. They're absolutely amazing. I never put them on, but they are amazing. Once you really get everything else ironed out, you just don't need the bonus damage. You're already doing so much. The wand, I think I said earlier, light damage is the most important. Shield, the resists in as much ES as you can. Obviously, resist being capped is always top priority. The links, I've got chaos from damage taken Warlords. It's kind of nice. It's in no way, shape, or form mandatory, and it's really only there because of players cannot regenerate life mana or ES maps. I explain that more in the stupid long video that I am going to upload at some point. Faster casting Val Haste, obviously increased duration would be nice to link with it, but in all honesty, nothing lasts more than the 4 seconds. If Val Haste is on, whatever I'm looking at is dead. That's... oh, auras. Enlighten, Discipline, Wrath, Herald. Now, before I was doing HOI, I actually had an Empower link going through these to buff up the Discipline and Wrath, but then we switched it up to Herald Vice with Enlighten, and you have enough mana to make it work, especially with the reserve between the Skyforce and one of the reserve nodes. But the Herald device is still giving you more DPS than if you were linking Empower with your Wrath. And then obviously Discipline you do technically lose a little because, I mean, you lose a little, yes, versus the Empower. But all in all, the Herald of Nice has a lot of good benefits to it. You know, you're shattering enemies, which does have some cool innate effects. Unfortunately, it doesn't prevent volatile, but it does prevent things like porcupine spikes and some other weird little effects. Very nice. That's it. That's the quick rundown of the build. Again, I'm gonna have the description, in the video's description, I'm gonna have a link to the gentleman whose build I actually pretty much copied, and then I've talked to him in some of the posts, and we've made adjustments to kind of make it work out nicely for League. And yeah, that's about it. That's the quick rundown. I'll also put a link to the long rundown when I finally upload it in the description as well. Alright, take care.